In part 2 of this one-part series, we looked at the general problem I have with God or gods and the supernatural, making any belief in an historical Jesus entirely irrelevant. In this video, I want to go over a very specific problem which should keep anyone from taking seriously the stories of Jesus, both the supposedly historical parts and the supernatural bits. The stumbling block for anyone should be that literally everything Christians claim to know about the historical Jesus and his resurrection comes to us as nothing more than someone's say. And worse, we're talking about third-hand accounts from decades later, at best. There are no contemporaneous historical accounts of Jesus. Not one. Let me repeat that. There are no contemporaneous historical accounts of Jesus. There are no contemporaneous historical accounts of Jesus. Did I say that already? No one at the time mentioned Jesus in any historical document while he was alive. We don't even have a single first-person account of Jesus or anything he did from anyone who was with him while he was supposedly alive. The Gospels are anonymous, written decades later, and clearly not written by the people whose names later came to be attached, including the so-called disciples or apostles Matthew and John. But even if we did have first-hand accounts from people claiming to have been there at the time, that too would be nothing more than someone's say. This is one of the threads that is easily lost if you've been mired in the traditional view of the Gospels and New Testament more generally. For instance, Christian apologist William Lane Craig is fond of saying that the biggest piece of evidence for Jesus' resurrection is the story of the empty tomb, claiming there are 6 independent attestations of the story. But each of those attestations come from the Bible. Is that supposed to be independence? Even if so, it's nothing more than someone's third-hand say from decades after the supposed event. And 2 of those attestations are copies of the original. It reminds me of what Mark Twain said of the witnesses to Joseph Smith's golden plates, 5 of whom were from the Whitmer family, along with Joseph, his brother and father. Quote, "I could not feel more satisfied and at rest if the entire Whitmer family had testified," end quote. By the way, where is this empty tomb? That would be evidence if we could be sure that there was a Jesus, that the particular tomb in question was actually his, and we had some way to know that this Jesus was certainly dead when he went in and alive when he came out. That's how far away we are from having any actual evidence of an empty tomb. Someone saying there was an empty tomb, even a first-hand account, doesn't do it, and we don't even have that. Additional so-called evidence offered claims that various groups of people said that they saw Jesus alive after his death, including the disciples. Do we have any actual evidence that these people really did see Jesus alive after his death? No. Once again, it's just someone's say. I'm also dissuaded by the lack of independent historical references to Jesus. The Gospels themselves can't even agree on when Jesus was born. Along with that, there are numerous historical claims within the Gospels which can and have been checked, such as the census, where everyone has to go back to their hometown to be counted, and Herod's murder of the innocents. These things never happened, nor are there any independent historical reports of the dead rising from their graves and having a latte in town after Jesus' resurrection, as claimed in Matthew's Gospel. This fact isn't even mentioned in the other Gospels. Imagine leaving that out of the story. You might as well fail to mention Hans Gruber falling to his death or Carl being shot by Reggie VJ at the end of Die Hard. It would be like Luke writing his gospel and never mentioning that his father was Darth Vader. Was there an historical Jesus? I couldn't care less. If there was, there is literally nothing we can know about him with even the tiniest bit of certainty, smaller than a mustard seed. I'm supposed to put my entire life and possibly 10% of my gross income on nothing more than someone's say? Someone who wasn't even there? Someone writing decades later and at a time and place when education, critical thinking, and understanding actual evidence is virtually non-existent? Are you f***ing kidding me? The only thing more insane is the idea that a loving God would decide the eternal fate and well-being of his children based on whether or not they believe such nonsense on nothing more than someone's say. No parent in this world would even think of doing such a thing. Christopher Hitchens used to say that God is not great. But if this God exists and has left us all in such peril with so little to go on, he's not even good. And Luke certainly has a better story to tell, perhaps about his father. I'll see you next week. Until then, I'll continue to be me. Thanks for watching.